My name is Kevin, and I'm about to tell you a story that changed my life forever. Until this moment, I considered myself an ordinary American guy, worked as a mechanic in an auto shop in Denver, had a house in the suburbs, and a loving marriage with Emily for 12 years. Emily worked as a nurse at the local hospital. She was always a caring, cheerful woman with red hair and green eyes. We met back in college, got married after graduation, and it seemed like our life was going in the right direction. The first 9 years of our marriage were blissful. We dreamed about having children, planned trips, bought furniture for our small but cozy house. Emily often worked night shifts and I was used to it. Medicine is a profession that demands sacrifices. Everything started changing 3 years ago. At first, it was little things. Emily began staying late at work more often, started receiving strange phone calls that she would quickly end when I appeared nearby. But I trusted her completely and didn't think much of it. One day about a year ago, Emily informed me that the hospital was sending her to professional development courses in Chicago for a week. I was happy for her. She always strived for professional growth. I drove her to the airport, kissed her goodbye, and wished her luck. During that week, we only spoke in the mornings and evenings. She said the courses were very intensive with little time for conversations. I understood and didn't insist. When Emily returned, she seemed somehow different. More distant, thoughtful. When I asked about the courses, she answered briefly without details. She said she was very tired and needed time to process everything. The following months became a real test. Emily started going to courses regularly, once a month, sometimes more often. Always to Chicago, always for a week. I began asking myself whether such long-term training programs for nurses really existed. One evening, when Emily had once again left for training, I decided to call her hospital to learn more about these courses. Maybe I should have been pursuing professional development as a mechanic too. The hospital administrator initially didn't understand what I was talking about. Then she explained that their hospital didn't send staff to courses in Chicago, and they generally had no professional development programs outside the city. Moreover, Emily had taken unpaid leave for that week. The world turned upside down. I sat in our kitchen with the phone receiver in my hand and couldn't believe what I had just heard. My wife, the woman I trusted more than anything in the world, had been deceiving me for over a year. I didn't know what to do. Confrontation seemed like the obvious solution, but something held me back. Maybe I hoped I was wrong, that there was some logical explanation. So I decided to wait for her return and try to figure things out. When Emily returned home 3 days later, I greeted her with her favorite dinner and flowers. She was surprised by such attention but seemed happy. During dinner, I carefully asked about the courses, the hotel, the food in Chicago. Emily answered in detail with specifics. She told me about the Marriott Hotel in the city center, about the restaurant where she had lunch, about interesting cardiology lectures. Everything seemed plausible, but I knew it was a lie. The next morning, when Emily went to work, I did something I had never done before. I went through her things. In her desk drawer, I found credit card receipts from recent months. Most purchases were in Denver, but there were others from Las Vegas. Las Vegas, not Chicago. Receipts from expensive restaurants, the Bellagio Hotel, even from a jewelry store. The dates matched her professional development courses. I felt the ground slipping away beneath my feet. Las Vegas, a city where people go to have fun, gamble, get married, or meet with lovers. I needed final certainty. I decided to hire a private investigator, but then changed my mind. Instead, I took vacation time from work and followed Emily during her next business trip. Following my own wife turned out to be the hardest thing in my life. I bought a ticket on the same flight to Las Vegas, sat a few rows behind her on the plane, watched as she eagerly looked out the window. At the airport, a man met her. Tall, elegantly dressed, with dark hair. They hugged not like old friends but like lovers. I felt sick watching what I saw. For the next 3 days I followed them. They stayed at the Bellagio, dined at the most expensive restaurants, attended shows, gambled at the casino. Emily laughed so genuinely, the way she hadn't laughed with me in a long time. On the third day, something happened that I didn't expect. They went to a jewelry store where Emily tried on rings for a long time. Not wedding rings, just beautiful expensive rings. The man bought her one with a diamond. I realized this wasn't just an affair. This was a serious relationship that had been going on for over a year. A relationship built on my money, my trust, my love. That evening I returned to Denver, a day before Emily. I needed time to think, to plan my next steps. When Emily returned, a new ring adorned her hand. I asked about it. She said she bought herself a gift for good work at the courses. Even in this she was lying. I decided not to create scandals. Instead, I quietly prepared divorce papers, transferred half of our joint savings to my personal account, and found myself an apartment. A week later, when Emily was again preparing for her next trip, I met her at the door with a suitcase and divorce papers. "I hope you enjoy Las Vegas with Richard," I said calmly. Richard was her lover's name. I learned this by hiring a real investigator to gather evidence. Emily first tried to deny it, then cried, then begged for forgiveness. But it was too late. I had lost not only my wife but also faith that a good life was possible. The divorce went quickly. Emily didn't argue about the division of property. Perhaps she felt guilty. We had to sell the house, each of us took our share and went our separate ways. It's been 6 months since the divorce. Emily moved to another state. I never found out if it was with that Richard. I'm no longer interested. Now I live in a small apartment, work at the same auto shop, trying to build a new life. Sometimes I miss those happy years when I believed in our marriage. But more often I feel relief that the truth finally came out. They say time heals all wounds. I hope that's true. For now, I'm just living one day at a time, trying not to think about how long this lie lasted and how many happy moments turned out to be fake. But let me tell you more about how I discovered the truth and what really happened during those months of deception. The investigation I conducted revealed much more than I initially expected. When I hired that private investigator, his name was Jake Morrison, a former police detective who specialized in marital infidelity cases. He uncovered a web of lies that went deeper than I could have imagined. Jake's first report came back within 2 weeks. It contained photographs, credit card statements, phone records, and even hotel surveillance footage. Emily's secret life was laid bare in black and white. The man she was seeing wasn't just any random guy she met in a bar. Richard Sullivan was a successful real estate developer from Las Vegas, divorced, with 2 teenage children. He was wealthy, charming, and apparently everything that I wasn't. Jake's report showed that their affair had started during a medical conference in Las Vegas nearly 18 months ago. Not the year I had initially suspected. Emily had actually attended that conference. It was legitimate. But instead of focusing on professional development, she had focused on Richard. The conference lasted 3 days, but she had stayed for a week, telling me it was extended training. That was when their affair began. What hurt the most was reading the detailed timeline Jake had prepared. Every course in Chicago corresponded to a trip to Las Vegas. Every excuse, every lie, every moment she came home and kissed me while carrying the scent of another man, it was all documented. But the most devastating discovery was yet to come. Jake found out that Emily and Richard had been making plans. Not just vacation plans or weekend getaway plans. They were planning a future together. Richard had been looking at properties in Colorado, considering moving his business there. Emily had been researching job opportunities in Las Vegas hospitals. They were planning to be together, and I was just an obstacle to be removed when the time was right. The jewelry store receipts told their own story. The diamond ring wasn't the first piece Richard had bought her. There was a necklace from 6 months ago, earrings from 4 months ago, a bracelet from 2 months ago. Each purchase coincided with one of her training trips. I realized that while I was working overtime to save money for our future, for the children we planned to have, for the house renovations Emily said she wanted, she was accepting expensive gifts from another man and planning to leave me. Jake also discovered that Emily had opened a secret bank account. She had been gradually moving small amounts of money from our joint account. Amounts so small I never noticed. $20 here, $50 there, sometimes $100. Over 18 months she had accumulated nearly $8,000. When I confronted Jake with this information, asking him what Emily planned to do with that money, his answer was simple: probably her escape fund. Money to start fresh when she decided to leave you. The phone records were perhaps the most painful evidence to review. Emily and Richard spoke every day, sometimes multiple times a day. During my lunch breaks, during my commute home from work, late at night when I was sleeping, they were constantly in touch. I read through some of the text message logs Jake had obtained. The intimate messages, the "I love you" exchanges, the plans they made, the complaints Emily had about our marriage, about me. She told Richard the first was boring, that I lacked ambition, that she felt trapped in our small-town life. Reading those messages felt like being stabbed repeatedly. Each word was a betrayal not just of our marriage vows, but of the friendship we had built over 12 years together. But Jake's investigation revealed something else. Something that changed my approach to the entire situation. Richard was married too. His divorce had been finalized only 3 months ago. His ex-wife, Patricia Sullivan, had discovered his affair with Emily and several other women. Patricia had taken Richard to court and won a significant settlement, including primary custody of their children and half of his considerable assets. This information gave me an idea. Instead of simply confronting Emily and demanding an explanation, I decided to orchestrate a more comprehensive resolution. I contacted Patricia Sullivan. Our conversation was awkward at first. Here were two people who had never met, brought together by the infidelity of our respective spouses. But Patricia was surprisingly understanding and helpful. She had been exactly where I was, betrayed, hurt, and seeking justice. Patricia provided me with additional information about Richard's patterns, his methods of manipulation, and most importantly, his financial situation. Richard's recent divorce had left him in a much more precarious position than Emily realized. His business was struggling, he had significant alimony and child support payments, and he was leveraging everything he owned to maintain his luxurious lifestyle. Patricia also revealed that Richard had a history of affairs. Emily wasn't his first extramarital relationship, and she likely wouldn't be his last. He was a serial cheater who enjoyed the thrill of new conquests. Armed with this information, I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of confronting Emily immediately, I decided to let her make her choice freely, but with full knowledge of what that choice meant. I prepared a comprehensive dossier about Richard Sullivan. His financial problems, his history of infidelity, his recent divorce, and his pattern of abandoning women once the novelty wore off. I included copies of court documents from his divorce, testimony from his ex-wife about his affairs, and financial records showing his true economic situation. But I didn't give this information to Emily right away. Instead, I waited for her next training trip to Las Vegas. This time I didn't follow her. I didn't hire Jake to monitor her activities. I simply waited at home, preparing for the conversation that would end our marriage. Emily returned from Las Vegas on a Thursday evening, glowing with happiness. She was wearing a new dress, had gotten a professional manicure, and was carrying a small gift bag from an expensive boutique. How were the courses? I asked just as I had dozens of times before. Wonderful, she replied, kissing my cheek. I learned so much about cardiac care protocols. The instructors were amazing. That's great, I said. I have something for you too. I handed her the dossier about Richard Sullivan. Emily's face went through a range of emotions as she opened the folder. Confusion, recognition, fear, and finally, resignation. She spent nearly an hour reading through everything, occasionally looking up at me with tears in her eyes. How long have you known? She finally asked. Long enough, I replied. The question now is, what are you going to do about it? Emily broke down completely. She confessed everything, not just the affair but her plans to leave me, the secret bank account, the job applications in Las Vegas. She begged for forgiveness, promised to end things with Richard, swore she would do anything to save our marriage. But then I asked her the question that revealed everything, do you love him? Her hesitation was answer enough. Even after seeing evidence of Richard's deception, his financial problems, his history of abandoning women, Emily still loved him. I do, she whispered. I'm sorry, Kevin, but I do. That was the moment our marriage truly ended. Not when I discovered the affair, not when I hired the investigator, not when I found the evidence. It ended when Emily chose Richard despite knowing exactly who he was. Then go to him, I said, handing her the divorce papers. But go with your eyes open. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings, property divisions, and emotional confrontations. Emily tried several times to change my mind, to convince me that we could work things out. But every conversation ended the same way, with her admitting that she couldn't promise to stop loving Richard. The house sold quickly. The market in Denver was good, and we made a decent profit. Emily took her half of the money and moved to Las Vegas within a month of our divorce being finalized. I found out later, through mutual friends, that her relationship with Richard ended within 6 months of her moving to Las Vegas. Apparently, Patricia Sullivan had been right about his patterns. Once Emily was available full-time, once the thrill of the secret affair was gone, Richard lost interest. Emily tried to return to Denver, tried to contact me, tried to restart our relationship. But by then I had moved on. Not to another woman, I wasn't ready for that yet, but to a new life, a new understanding of what I wanted and deserved. The betrayal taught me something important about trust, about love, and about self-respect. Emily's affair wasn't just about sex or excitement or feeling trapped in our small-town life. It was about her fundamental inability to communicate with me, to work through our problems together, to honor the commitment she had made. I learned that some betrayals are too deep to forgive, not because the other person doesn't deserve forgiveness, but because forgiveness would require you to sacrifice your own self-worth. 6 months after the divorce, I received a letter from Emily. She had moved back to Colorado Springs and was working at a hospital there. She apologized again, explained that she had made a terrible mistake, and asked if we could meet for coffee. I never responded to that letter. Not out of anger or vindictiveness, but because I realized that the man who had been married to Emily, the man who would have jumped at the chance to reconcile, no longer existed. The betrayal had killed that version of myself, and in its place was someone stronger, someone who understood his own worth. A year later I started dating again. Nothing serious at first, just casual dinners and movies with women I met through friends or work. It took time to learn how to trust again, how to be vulnerable without being naive. I eventually met Sarah, a teacher from Boulder who had gone through her own divorce several years earlier. Our relationship developed slowly, built on honesty and mutual respect rather than passion and grand gestures. We've been together for 8 months now, and while it's different from what I had with Emily, it's also healthier. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how I handled the situation with Emily. They wonder if I should have fought harder for our marriage, if I should have been willing to forgive and rebuild. My answer is always the same. I gave Emily every opportunity to choose our marriage over her affair. I provided her with complete information about what she was choosing. She made her decision with full knowledge of the consequences. I have no regrets about respecting her choice and protecting my own dignity in the process. The experience taught me that love without trust is just an emotion, not a foundation for a life together. It taught me that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone go when they've shown you they don't want to stay. Most importantly, it taught me that betrayal, while devastating, doesn't have to define you. It can break you down, but it can also break you open to new possibilities, new strengths, new understandings about what you truly need and deserve. Emily's affair ended our marriage, but it also began my real adult life. A life based on self-respect, honest communication, and authentic connections with people who value the same things I do. That's not the ending I planned for when I married Emily 12 years ago, but it's the ending that made me who I am today. And despite everything, I'm grateful for that transformation. Thank you for watching the video to the end. Maybe YouTube will no longer offer you my channel, so subscribe to it by clicking subscribe on the right under the video to receive new interesting stories. Also on the right of the video there is a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to, and you can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.